gentlemen of internet land, welcome to Walking with J.Beau on this sunny, chilly April 2nd in Maine. April 2nd, 2025. A lot of the wind has died down, thankfully. That's why I didn't walk yesterday. So we're walking today, plenty of sunshine till a couple 3 hours from now, and then it's going to rain tonight. So I hope everyone's having a beautiful, beautiful week thus far. Hope you had a good Monday yesterday. And it feels cool enough that I should have brought my gloves, my thin gloves. My fingers are getting a little cool. But we are going to be warming up. All that snow we had is now gone. So, except for a little smidge right here on the lawn. Just a little patch. So anyway, we have seen a little bit of a decline in the amount of vandalism going on with Teslas. I think a lot of it has to do with people understanding you're going to be prosecuted for this. So that's what laws are intended to do. They're intended to be a deterrent. That's the main purpose of it. Because most people don't want to commit a crime and get in trouble. So, most people. I gotta watch out for this house up here. They have a dog that likes to bark and charge, but it's usually tethered. It's actually over here. Yeah, there's the dog cable going inside the garage. So I'm safe. Things you got to get used to when walking. Most dogs are just fine. Some of them are very protective when you walk by. A lot of it is just for show. They won't actually come up and attack you, but you never know that. So that's why you flinch when somebody fakes hitting you in the face. I guess is my point. So anyway, let's flip this around. Hi everybody today. God bless you and your family. I hope you're having a good week, like I said. And you know, the weather is going to be a little dicey for me walking, especially over the next 10 or 11 days. A couple days of sun, a couple days of rain mixed in. So that's one of those things. We'll deal with it. So anyway, I'll start warming up shortly. I'm wearing a long sleeve shirt, t-shirt over that. I should say a thermal long sleeve shirt. T-shirt over that. a long double XL t-shirt over these two shirts. Well, not a t-shirt, but a jersey. Then I'm wearing my hoodie. And right now the only thing that's cold is my hands. So definitely not the greatest start to spring we've ever had, but the snow's gone and the sun's out, so I realize some people around the country, you get 80, 85 degrees. Enjoy it. We'll be getting similar temps shortly. So anyway, thank you for walking with me and being with me today. Hi, how are you?
Good.
So we're going to be walking a little under 6 miles today. One of these days we're going to head up that trail again when we have some nice foliage. The trail's only about a mile long, mile and a half. But I certainly could incorporate that into a regular walk, you know. So now my body is starting to sweat and my hands are starting to feel not as cold, because I've explained that before, that when you get your blood flowing, your blood vessels expand to allow more blood flow, and I mean the blood vessels in your extremities. Because a lot of times when you get your heart rate up, you may be running away from danger or to save your life or whatever. And, so what happens is, right now my fingers are all pink because it's cold. And also I'm starting to get the blood flowing into my extremities, so my hands are going to start warming up and they won't be cold at all in a couple of minutes. That's what happens when you walk. It's also why when you're walking, if you wear a ring, by the time you're done with your walk, the ring fits pretty snug because your fingers swell up a little bit with blood. So it's not the bad kind of swelling like edema or anything from fluids, but instead it's just blood flow from your little blood vessels expanding. So anyway, we're walking by a school. There's people lining up to pick up their kids. Pick up their stuff. So anyway, we're going to head on up. It's amazing how good dogs hear things. I rarely, if ever, see a dog or hear one until it's already heard me. They hear your voice and they start barking. So there we go. My hands are warm now almost. By the time I'm done this walk, I'll be soaked with sweat. which is a good thing. And what do I eat before a walk? Nothing heavy. I don't eat very much that's heavy anymore these days anyway. That's what you gotta watch for when walking. A Prius, electric vehicle. Couldn't hear it. I heard the tires making noise on the road. I couldn't hear the car. Something to keep in your head when you're walking. Speaking of walking, I hope you checked out the Woods Walk Gun Talk video I uploaded and made live yesterday, recorded Sunday. Actually recorded Monday. I recorded that and uploaded it the same day. No, it was actually the 31st. I remember the date I put on it. Anyway, a lot of good conversation on that one. Walking in the woods. Hadn't done one of those since February 20th, 21st. So, always enjoyable. This is the steep part. You can't tell how steep this is, but it's pretty steep. So Tesla sales. Tesla sales have dropped 13%. Not good, but not a disaster either. Stocks are starting to regain. It's only temporary. And you have to understand that Tesla is leading that industry, especially in autonomy. Whew. Autonomy vehicles are going to be a big part of the future, and electric is probably good for that. Self-driving vehicles. They had a big contract with Los Angeles that has been approved for Tesla, despite all the rhetoric, for public transportation, autonomous vehicles. So stocks are recovering, and it's also been made pretty public that public government servants have a 130-day window that they can operate. So Doge will remain, but it'll have somebody else running it. So Elon has some time left. And he was asked in that J.Beau interview, which I recommend everybody watch that video. It's a lengthy one. It explains everything they're doing. And it explains what they're not touching. They're not touching your Social Security. They're not touching your Medicare. The Democrats are lying to you. The media is lying to you. They're trying to scare you. And for some people, it's working. I'm going to flip this around. And they're fear-mongering people, because that's been the formula for the Democratic Party for a long time. That's what they use the media for. Fear, peer pressure, public shaming, defamation. That's all the tools the left uses to keep their minions in line. Doesn't work as well for them anymore. So anyway, watch that interview with J.Beau on the official Fox News YouTube. Easy to find. It's one of the latest videos. And they explain what they're doing and what they're finding. And after this is all done, people cheating the government are going to be prosecuted. And all of that's going on right now is going to be vindicated. And the Democrats are going to be eating crow. Looks like they're working over here. Some heavy equipment. Locust tree experts. Got some tree experts around here somewhere. I don't hear any chainsaws. Got to be around here someplace. Ooh, I got my blood flowing. That's why I like that first part of that walk. So the chickens aren't out today. Sometimes I get chickens in this yard running around. So we had Trans Day of Visibility Sunday, March 31st. And so want to remind people transsexuals are okay. Transgenderism is not. And there is a difference. And the first thing people talk about on the internet on Trans Day of Visibility is they post pictures of trans people that did mass shootings, trying to make it the equivalent that trans people are violent. They're not. Far left extremism is violence. It's not limited to just trans people. It seems to be, the far left seems to be prone to violence in general. Vindictiveness, as evidenced by the Tesla vandals and bombings in dealerships. They have an entire generation and a half, from what I can tell, that have been indoctrinated, radicalized. Selfish people, almost all are atheist, and they don't have anything to belong to. So they join the far left extremism cult, and I may be exaggerating a tiny bit on that, but you get what I'm saying. When you have a discussion with a liberal, who I won't even call him liberal anymore, leftists. True liberals don't do things like throw their coffee at you because they don't like what you're saying. I used to be a Democrat liberal. That's not, you know, the Kennedy Democrats weren't like that. So, it's these radicalized ones, their first reaction when you disagree with them is to become hostile. You racist. They won't let you speak. You racist. How could you vote for them? You racist. You bigot. You effing Nazi. They don't want to hear what you have to say after that. And they've been programmed. They've been programmed to do that. And that's the problem we have. You can't talk to them. And the far left that radicalized them, they don't want them to talk to you. They want them to talk to them, because then they can be controlled. They don't want to hear anybody spewing common sense. As soon as you do that, you are deemed a Nazi. So that's the problem we're having. And why I keep my head on a swivel when I wear this hat. I don't wear my red MAGA hats unless I'm at a Trump rally. So, first Trump rally I went to, I didn't have a MAGA hat. The rest of them I did. A traditional red hat. Red hats don't look good on me, so I don't wear them. But I'll wear this one. So anyway, you got to keep your head on a swivel, because there's lunatics out there. We've seen plenty of examples. So, I had this piece of wood that fell off a vehicle, it looks like. So, toss that off to the side here so nobody runs over it. Or some kid coming down here on a bike doesn't hit it, wipe out in the road in front of a car going by. So anyway, we got this tree branch here that's been sticking out here for a while, poking me when I walk by, so now I'm taking care of that too. So I guess this is going to be a day of taking care of things. Speaking of which, I want to get back on the trans thing, or LGBT. Anybody that's in the LGBT community, they're having their own internal wars. I've noticed online, a lot of the LGBT people that are cool are upset with the radicals because they're ruining it for everybody. And I think everybody knows that at this point. So I'm just saying, take a second. If somebody's trans, chances are they're going to be far left, but it doesn't mean they're going to be violent. And a lot of times, I've been noticing online lately especially, there are many conservatives or people that are independent. So I think we need to be more not so polarized, I guess is what I'm getting at, whether it's firearms, trans issues, LGBT, or just other things like entitlements and whatever else that the far left pushes all the time. Climate change, that's another one. You know, and the way they twist everything is the same. Like, I believe we should have clean air and water. Factories should not be allowed to spew contaminants that are going to ruin Maine lakes, because that's happened in the past. And because of that, even many decades later, we still have limits on what can be eaten from fish caught in Maine because of mercury and things like that, contaminants that are in the lakes, in the sediment. They're going to be there for a long time. Apparently mercury just doesn't go away. So, you know, there's some things we need to be better at. Perfect example, Lewiston, Auburn here used to smell like Rumford. Rumford had one of the biggest paper mills in New England, and it smelled just like raw sewage. The river smelled like raw sewage. It had big cakes of foam on it in the 70s when I was a kid. And we used to make jokes like, if you fell in the water, you didn't come out wet, you came out dirty, because it's so polluted. Nothing was living in it. It was oxygen depleted. Basically, it was a cesspool trough. That's what the river turned into for the mills. And that was cleaned up. And now there's fish back again. People kayak and canoe on it. And it doesn't smell like that anymore. Once in a while, you do catch a whiff of Rumford on a cold winter morning where the wind drifts down this way. But it's nowhere near what it was like. It used to smell like sewage. It had like a sulfur smell to it, if you've ever smelled that. A lot of people would say it smells like somebody passing gas. Sulfur, you know, methane. It had that kind of smell. It wasn't good. It was an industrial town that made the state of Maine a lot of money, but you know, it's not good. So anyway, it's a huge decline in paper anyway at this point. So it's probably an industry on its way out of some sort. You know, you're still going to need paper for books and, you know, things like that, but posters, mail, envelopes. But people don't really buy like writing paper unless they're in school, and maybe a notepad in an office somewhere, but a lot of people just using a digital notepad. So anyway, we need to clean everything up, but we don't need to be like climate, religion, freakazoids either, you know? We don't need to throw a drink on somebody because they're using a plastic straw. I guess that's my point I'm getting to. And that's the attitude that the left has. And like I said, you can't talk with them because they're programmed. You can't say something logical like, okay, well, you forced me to use a paper straw and they served me my drink in a plastic cup. So my food came with a plastic lid and a plastic carry container. I mean, what the hell are these guys doing, you know? You try to tell them that sounds as crazy as it is. Oh, no, you belong to a cult. It's like, oh my God, I'm not the one in a cult. You are, for crying out loud. So anyway, you know what we have to deal with, right? So they do these things once in a while to make themselves feel good. We're gonna ban plastic grocery bags. We're gonna force you to use paper, which also pollutes the environment to make it. So let's face it, if you're a human being, you have things you need that cause pollution when you need them. I mean, one of the biggest chains in New England that liberals love and they never criticize, starting right there all the way up the road, right here, Dunkin' Donuts container, Dunkin' Donuts container, Dunkin' Donuts container. They just throw it out their vehicle. Dunkin' Donuts, right here, drink. We're going to see this all up the line. Plastic bottles. Yeah, look at this. Look at this. Dunkin' Donuts. Dunkin' Donuts. Dunkin' Donuts. Dunkin' Donuts. Now, it's probably somebody that drives by this route every day after getting what they need at Dunkin' Donuts, and then they throw this out the window, all in the same place. So, but I see that all the way up the road on my walks anyway. But that's what it looks like. So they do a lot of bitching and complaining about this, that, and the other thing, and they're hypocrites. They're always hypocrites. Perfect example. If you have an issue where 80% of the public doesn't support something, but the far left is supporting it, then you're a bigot and a transphobe if you want to stop biological men from using the ladies' room. But it's okay to propose magazine capacity limits and force people to get a license to use a constitutional guaranteed Second Amendment right. It's a right guaranteed by the Constitution. It's okay for them to pass all this legislation, stifling gun owners, and then have the audacity to say they're not infringing on gun rights. They're hypocrites. So anyway, I'm very happy the sun is out today. Might have been one of those days where if it would have been not so sunny, I would have walked, but I would have been bundled up a lot more. I did wear the neck collar because I don't like having cold air on my neck when I walk. So the latest video I saw on a Tesla vandalization was somebody wearing a mask. They know the cameras are going to record them now, so now they're wearing a mask. It's going to be difficult to catch people doing that, unless you actually catch them doing it, which may raise the risk of somebody getting injured and hurt, because if they're wearing a mask, it's going to be hard to tell that they're doing that. But one thing I did notice is a lot of these people causing vandalization have also been posting it on the internet. because they can't help it. They have to virtue signal, you know, that's in the psyche. Somebody has to know I did something good for the cause. So they post it online, and I think that's where you're going to see most of these people, or some of them, get arrested. They're going to brag about it because they can't help it. And they'll do things like they'll make a post, and then they'll delete it. Because then they realize after their euphoric erection goes away that maybe I shouldn't have put that on there. But somebody will have seen it and screen capped it and saved it and then reported it. And once something's online, it's online forever in the form of data. And the FBI can subpoena that. The DOJ can, I mean. And the FBI would facilitate getting it. That's the other thing I wanted to talk about. Speaking of that, the ATF. Firearms. The ATF is designed in the issue of public safety. It is not a law enforcement agency, despite people thinking it is, which is part of the problem. That was instituted as a policing of regulations, policing what Congress passed with regard to public safety. Which is why whenever the ATF shows up, they have the FBI with them, or law enforcement, because they are not law enforcement. So they're getting reined in by the current FBI director, Kash Patel, thankfully. And so we'll see what comes with that. I hear some good things are going to be happening, which is good. They're talking about making suppressors, you know, silencers, not considered their own thing. They're actually an accessory to a firearm that you can legally own. So forcing people to get a government tax stamp and have a special background check to buy one shouldn't happen. And the reason why I say that is because it would be like requiring a special background check to buy magazines, or buying a tax stamp and registering, you know, your magazines with the government. You're not supposed to have a government registry. In 1982, when the assault weapons ban came about, which was a machine gun bill, fully automatic machine guns were banned. Any newly made ones were banned from being sold or purchased, but you could buy retro, anything made before, which there are very few around available. And when you find one, that's why you're going to pay $10,000 for it, because they're hard to find. And you have to get licensed. And you have to register it with the government. You have to pay a tax stamp. And it's a hassle. So they took that model and tried to do that with suppressors. And they put you on long waiting lists, which lately have not been long, I should tell you. The approval for suppressors has been expedited quite a bit, sometimes within a week or two, or even days. You can get approved for a suppressor. You no longer have to wait a year or 6 months. So, but they're talking about not requiring a tax stamp or check to buy one, and being able to buy one like any other accessory that you would buy for a firearm. And if you ever seen or heard a silencer, unless you're shooting a .22, they're not silent. They suppress the noise. They suppress it enough where maybe you could shoot it without hearing protection, depending on the caliber, but even with 9mm, it's still loud. It's just not as loud. It goes from ear piercing to uncomfortable, you know what I mean? And it's still loud. The movies, you watch a movie and all you hear is when they're using silencers. That's not real, folks. So that does not get rid of the bullet the way it fires with gunpowder inside the gun. It fires and kicks the slide back. It doesn't silence that. What it does is it adds compression in the barrel because you have a muffler on the front and the gases have to go through it. It gets absorbed through these channels that are in it. So a lot of people shoot with subsonic ammo, which is made for suppressors, because that pressure builds up. If you use regular ammo, it's not good. You're shooting with too much pressure because it's not much difference. Well, in fact, there is no difference from having a constricted barrel shooting ammo, which is dangerous. So and again, I'm no expert on suppressors. I know some about it because I read about it, understand the principles and how it works, etc. So this around. All right. Got a propane canister here, empty. That's an empty one. We can hear a squirrel skittering around out here. So, pussy willows. Got a little bit of ice still there. Got a little bit of ice down there still. Most of it's thawed out. I'm pretty warm now. So today, folks, today President Trump declares a Liberation Day. Today is the day that the tariffs, with an official ceremony today, go into full effect. And what's interesting is Israel who had a lot of tariffs on the United States, are lifting all of their tariffs against the U.S. The reason why they're doing that is because they realize the economy in the United States is necessary to Israel, as well as tax dollars for funding. But India doesn't really need us in that regard, and they're talking about dropping their tariffs also and having reciprocal trade with the United States. This would be really great news, especially for car makers in the US. Now, all you're seeing is the Democrats trying to damage tariffs and Trump's ability to hold Canada accountable. A Democrat is filing a bill, a measure, in the Senate. And the measure is to deter Trump's tariffs on Canada over the fentanyl issue, because they're declaring that it's not a real issue affecting people enough to do that. So, President Trump posted on his Truth Social to call your senators, 4 or 5 of them specifically, Rand Paul of Tennessee, or Kentucky, whatever it is. No, Tennessee, Mitch McConnell of Kentucky, Susan Collins of Maine, Lisa Murkowski of Alaska. So it's very interesting to see President Trump going after Rand Paul, because a lot of people like Rand Paul. He considers himself more of an independent, not beholden to a party, and I guess he's not supporting these tariffs on Canada as much as he should be. And I think Trump is basically throwing his name out there saying, look, get with the program. Stop grandstanding. We're trying to save the country and lives. So I called Susan Collins' office. She's my senator. Very important to do that. I also sent an email to one of the fucking stupidest representatives out of Maine, Representative Milliken. She's not one of our representatives here in this part of Maine, but she's a liberal lunatic. She has that stupid liberal glasses look on her face. She's a virtue signaling white liberal female, the worst enemy to the country and Europe. And she introduced a bill, I think it was LD 1335. I think I'm correct on that. It's probably going to go down as ought not to pass. This is the bill. This is how fucking stupid liberals in Maine are. The bill proposed was to eliminate life sentences in prison. She feels bad for these people sent to prison for life. And then she gave her little speech. The video is on the government website for Maine. If you can find it, it should be available if you do a search. That's Representative Milliken. Anyway, she was asked if she has spoken to any victims. If she has spoken to anybody that was a victim of somebody sent for life in prison in Maine. She says, no. It's like, effing Lord, what is wrong with these people? She was modeling her bill. I'm not making this up, okay? I read about it. It's been verified, it's not a rumor. she based this bill on a country in Africa, in the Congo. They passed that, and she was using the model of that and how good it was for people as a model for Maine to have in our system. So I sent her an email, tried to be as respectful as I could, and, you know, told her basically people like you are dangerous and should not be in elected office. The reason why this bill's not going to get any steam is because victims of people that lost family members to brutal murders testified, and as soon as they testified, the whole mood in the room changed, and it was like, maybe we shouldn't do this. So this is another example of one of these liberal lunatic women who are responsible for almost all of this virtue signaling crap, whether it's climate change, LGBT stuff, gun rights. They scream about the guns and stuff. They've never owned one. They don't know what they do. They don't know how they work. We just got to get rid of them. People on CNN that's supposed to know what they're talking about say they're bad. And these people in office are influenced by that. So that's why it's important to show up and speak at these things. Now, because these family victims had to go relive and relitigate what happened to them, because the person that did it to them might actually be let out, they had to go torture themselves mentally by testifying in front of a bunch of idiots that shouldn't even be elected to office. And that kind of stuff just really pisses me off, you know? These people are out of touch, clueless. They're living in a fantasy land, not reality. And, you know, they won't realize it until something happens to them. You know, like there's two Congress people in D.C. who were carjacked right in D.C. They had a gun shoved in their face and their car stolen, and they could have been killed. And, you know, not only is that a national security issue, that you could do that to a congressman, I mean, there could very well have been an assassination, right? So, Washington, D.C. has some of the strictest gun laws in the country, and that happened. So, you know, those two people ought to know just through personal experience that, you know, maybe there's something else we can do besides taking people's guns away, because I didn't have anything to protect myself. I haven't followed up on those two, but, you know, the Democratic Party is a bunch of thugs. You know, they won't let you say anything if it goes against their agenda. So a lot of them don't say anything. So anyway, yes, the Tesla stuff, Doge and all that, Elon Musk, that's temporary. Everybody knows that. But the Republicans may be able to codify future Doge people, and it has to be codified in a way where Democrats, if they become president later, can't change what they're doing. See, what needs to happen is this process needs to finish, and then Congress needs to take it out of the hands of the president and people in power and have congressional oversight on it. So people in the White House are always going to be able to hire people and things like that, but you know, that's a matter of public opinion. Right now, the biggest problem Doge has and Trump has, especially with the tariffs, is the unknown. Nobody knows what's going to happen. People are afraid. They're fearful. even myself, who voted for Trump and understand what he's doing, I had this feeling of, you know, okay, well, I'll support it. It had better work. So it's one of those things. If you take the time to get the information that the media is not telling you, you'll feel a lot better about it. But that's the problem. People don't know where to look for that info. They don't know what to get. They don't trust what they're getting. Or even worse, they're believing everything the media is saying and the Democrats are saying. So, you know, I do know that pretty much it's agreed that inflation is not going to go up because of the tariffs. What the tariffs will do is they're going to force companies to make it more economical to just come to America, build a factory here, and stay here. That's the whole point of them. We got to build that middle class we used to have, where people worked at a GM factory for 30, 40 years, retired with a GM car they bought, with a pension, their own house. And that's what made Detroit a big city. And a large part of this country is automotives, parts and service. Parts and service, that's, you know, that's car part stores. But unfortunately, most of the parts are now imported. So while you get all these auto parts stores, you're not having the jobs here making rotors and brake pads, and they're brought in from Mexico, China, other places, Philippines, Asia. We need stuff made here. And the argument is, if you make it here, everything's going to be more expensive. That's true. But wages will go up because the factories are here. Somebody working in a factory is going to be making good money in the automotive industry that wouldn't be here if it weren't for tariffs. They're going to pay taxes out of their pay, or maybe not, according to Trump's new tax plan, if the tariffs go really well. And people buying cars made in the United States will get a tax break when they buy it, so there'll be less tax to pay when you purchase it. And I'm sure there will be incentives. And basically, though, is you're working in a factory with cars made here. You're going to be taking the money that you earned here, and you're going to be spending it at your local businesses or online or wherever you spend it. And cars made by China and Mexico, that money's not coming into the United States. It's going somewhere else. That's what we're trying to stop. So this has been something that's been going on since the early 90s. We've given away our wealth. And at the same time, we're funding the entire world with stupidity, and we're broke. It was not a good business model. So you get people brave enough. President Trump is the only person probably that would be brave enough to even do this. Anybody else? Nope. Not even Ron DeSantis would be able to do what they're doing now. So, you know, this is a very big point in our history. This has to work, and I'm sure it will, because it's a multi-pronged plan that makes sense. Cut taxes for people, force factories here, force other countries to pay a tax to import their cars, or build a factory here and not pay a tax. Very simple. And that should work. It's not going to cause more inflation because the government is cutting their spending. Most of the inflation comes from government spending. They're not taking in enough tax dollars to pay for everything. So they print more money. That's why a double album now costs $40, $45, when just 5 years ago it was $30, $35. Vinyl records. So you used to be able to buy a new vinyl record for $19, which converted with an inflation calculator came out to what you used to pay for a vinyl record in 1985, 86, which is about $8.99, $9.99. So $20, $25 now is a normal rate comparable to how things used to be. So, which I remember back in the day when I didn't have much money and I wanted an album by somebody and I couldn't afford to get the vinyl album. I was like, all right, I'll buy 2 vinyl albums or I'll buy 4 cassette tapes. So I would end up buying more cassette tapes, which is fine. I still have them. Still have my cassette tapes. But you get what I'm saying. This will be good for everybody. It's a good plan. I'm just saying take the time to check out the actual plans. And I also recommend you go look at the actual government waste at the Doge website. I believe is doge.gov or something like that. Do a search for it. Clouds are starting to get a little hazy of the clouds, which we knew that as we see the maple syrup buckets still out here. This one here lost its lid. Yeah, the lid fell off. It's like they're starting to slow down. It's not going to be as cold overnight. And I don't know how much sap a tree makes, but I did hear from somebody that did this to just 2 trees, and they said they had more sap and syrup than they were ever going to eat. So pretty cool though. I think it's somebody that's contracted. Somebody actually does that, and they give you some money for putting those on your trees. That's what I think. Because we've already been by here and seen them working the buckets, emptying them, and they were doing both sides of the street. Now, the same person could own both sides of the street, but that's pretty rare around here. So, might just be an old-fashioned go knock on somebody's door. Would you mind if we tapped your trees? We'll pay you. I'd be down for that. We only got 2 maple trees. If we had a bunch, that would probably add up to something pretty good. So anyway, turned out to be a nice day today. The wind is calm. There's not much wind at all. Last night the wind was howling all day yesterday. That cold front came through. It was cold. Thankfully there was no snow with it. Now we're going to warm up a little bit. We're going to get rain for a couple days. May see a couple spots at night where it'll spit some snowflakes mixed with rain, but it's not gonna stick now. I don't recall ever having a snowstorm more than a week or 2 into April of any significance, I should add. There was one when I was a teenager. Actually, maybe younger than a teenager. I might have been about 11 or 12. It was a good 2.5 feet of snow. was up to my waist. Everything got buried, and that was in April. So, you know, that can and does happen. So I'm realistic about it, but for the most part, we should be fine. Well, I sure am enjoying the walk today. I have my stamina up at this point that I had towards the end of the walking season last year before winter. We had an unusually cold winter, and I only had about maybe 6 walks in all of February. Didn't have many in December. And I mean January. February I didn't have many walks, and I noticed that was catching up with me. I was losing my stamina. But it feels like I got it back now. Probably in a month or two we'll start doing maybe a little longer distances. And it's one of those things I've always weighed. I've explained it before, but it's like if you decide you're going to walk every day, you're going to have a limited amount of miles you're going to walk, because that will catch up with you by the end of the week. And if you walk every day, eventually you're going to start tiring your joints out and stuff, and you'll start feeling it. And I'm talking about after 50 years old. Okay, I'm not talking about you 20-year-olds. I'm talking about time to recover when you're older. There is a time of recovery now. So I walk every day, and even there's a couple days here and there where I'm like forcing myself to because my body doesn't feel like it. So, but I force myself through it, and more often than not, a third of the way into the walk I come out of that. So, because you feel bad if you don't walk. But I guess what I'm saying is you need to find out what your pace is, what works for you, what your body does, adjust the miles you do every day accordingly. Or you could walk 3 days a week and do longer walks each time. Whatever your schedule allows. Some people do 20-mile hikes on the weekend. I walk about 30-35 miles a week when I'm in optimal mode, which is 5 or 6 miles a day. You can do the math on that. Of course, you get interrupted by weather sometimes, like I didn't walk yesterday. I do not walk when it's windy or when it's windy and cold. So, I guess I'm saying is you don't have to walk every day, and you're probably not going to be able to walk every day unless you use a treadmill. And a treadmill doesn't give you the same workout, even though it does give you one. Get a treadmill that has an incline setting, so you can change the difficulty of walking. Ones with the most adjustments are the most expensive, and walking is free. So decide what's best for you. Some people like to use a treadmill in front of a flat screen and watch movies or listen to music or whatever. Whatever works. Point is, you got to get your cardiovascular system going. That's really the important thing. So, oops, here. See how much time we got left here. We have a little bit of battery left. had to put my hand down in front of the lens so it would create something dark to look at my battery power thing on the screen on the back of the camera, if you're wondering why I did that. So now we're going to wait and see what the tariffs do. This is a very interesting time. We've never had anything like this happen in our country. So I'm going to change the battery right now so I can finish this out. Be right back. There we go. Hi everybody. So, as I was saying, we've never had anything like this happen before. And from everything I've read and the sources I've read, you're going to have some economists that differ on this. But most of them agree that inflation will not go up because of tariffs. Now, it's a multi-pronged attack. It's tax cuts, very big important issue on that. Both for people that build the factories and hire people, as well as the regular Joe Schmo who's getting a tax break. So, basically tax cuts. And the reason why the tax cuts are not going to increase inflation because the government spending is dramatically cut. So you don't need as much tax dollars. The tariffs being taken in are going to pay for what's lost in tax revenue. Eventually, when it goes well and everything's working right, people making under $150,000 won't get taxed at all. That's the goal. And that would be possible if everything was run right by the government. People wouldn't have to pay taxes under $150,000 a year. So that's what Trump is trying to do. The Democrats are fighting against everything, and it's just a thing for power. They don't even care what Trump is promoting. They're just perverting everything into political gain. So, you know, it could be a cancer cure for babies born with rare lymphomas, and they would fight against it just because Trump came up with it. So that's what we got to deal with. In the end, though, what's going to happen is, picture it in the long picture. We had the COVID pandemic. The media revealed who they really are. The Democrats revealed who they really are. Now they get 21% approval, worst they've ever had. That's among all people. Among Democrats, they have 40% approval. That's the lowest they've had in many decades. So their approval is down. So what are they doing? They're doubling down on stupidity, and they're doing the same thing that killed their party. They're just going after Trump endlessly. Trump, Trump, Trump. Everything is Trump. And that doesn't work for them. So they're going to keep doing that because that's all they have that they can do, because they're not in power. So, you know, they're going to try to buy elections. Now, the Supreme Court election in Wisconsin, kind of a double-edged. Pritzker, that rich fat son of a bitch in Illinois, the governor, multi-billionaire, very rich, finances a super PAC, and they dumped record money into the Wisconsin Supreme Court election, which, by the way, the Republican lost. And Republicans were outspent, despite Elon Musk spending $24 million. The Democrat had, I think, 80-something million dollars was spent altogether. A record number for, you know, because that's going to redistrict a couple districts in Wisconsin, and Republicans are going to lose 2 seats in D.C. because of it. And I'm waiting today to see what the voter turnout was for Republicans. Scott Pressler, the Republican ground game person, said that turnout was exceptionally good. So The difference probably would be that it's Wisconsin and Republicans have a tough time winning there to begin with, as combined with people being angry with Elon Musk because of the media rhetoric. Stealing your Social Security, that's what they're saying, which is false. So I think Doge went so fast because Elon Musk is used to doing things that way. He's not in government. And I think getting the message out about what they were doing, transparency, was not as good as it could have been because you have a media that's not going to do that for you. So again, I'm going to blame the media for that. And they know what they're doing. So anyway, I think that's what combined to lose the Wisconsin thing. Now the good news, by an overwhelming margin, voters in Wisconsin voted for voter ID. So that completely shuts down the argument that the Democrats were trying to make, that it's racist to force minorities to get an ID to vote. The Democrat voters didn't buy into that, and they voted for voter ID because they don't want illegals voting either. So that was a big message sent to the Democrats last night. Very big win, because we got voter ID on the ballot in Maine here, and I fully expect it to pass here. People are angry with these illegals, and they're angry with, the Democrats just have terrible messaging. They try to tell you if you don't support something, you're a racist. That doesn't work. That's what's losing for them. The other good news from last night is one election race in Florida, Democrats outspent the Republican 9-1. 9-1. The Republicans spent $1 million and the Democrats spent $9 million and lost by 30,000 votes. I mean, it wasn't even close. So they're so desperate, they're willing to just throw money at things, hoping for a win. They won the Supreme Court thing, but they lost everything else last night. So the media is going to make it look like, oh, this is the Trump-Elon effect. Well, yes and no. There's a lot of people in Wisconsin. I wouldn't exactly call Wisconsin a swing state. Well, it is. Trump won it, but, they didn't win the senator thing there either. It's not a red state, it's not a blue state, but it's more blue. So this was a toss-up. Didn't know what was going to happen. The polls had it tied. And it turns out the Democrat won pretty easily last night. So I think a lot of that might have been the abortion issue. And that's one of those things. Trump has been trying to get the Republicans to change their messaging on that. And that's the thing with the Republicans. Democrats are better at elections, they're better at organizing, and they have more money. And Republicans are going to have to change how they've been doing things. And that's it. So, anyway, we're at the end of the walk. I'm going to say, see you later on the next walk. Thank you for walking with me. Click like and subscribe. Share the content and leave any comments if you want to comment on anything I talked about. We'll see you on the next walk, friends. God bless you and your family. Have a good week. And say a prayer for the country and President Trump and these tariffs that go into effect for today. Pray that they work. Talk to you soon, everybody. God bless. Bye-bye.